Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome, folks, to another episode of the History AI podcast. I'm your host, Chuck, and joining me as always is the witty and wise Marco.
Thanks, Chuck. Today, we've got quite the historical figure to dive into, the one and only John Jay.
That's right, Marco. John Jay was an American statesman, patriot, diplomat, and so much more. He lived during a time of incredible change and was instrumental in shaping the course of American history.
Absolutely, Chuck. But before we get into his political career, let's start at the beginning, his early life and family history.
John Jay was born on December 12, 1745, in New York City. His family had been in America for generations, and they were well established and well respected.
That's right, Chuck. His family had deep roots in the New York social and political scene. In fact, his maternal grandfather, Jacobus Van Cortlandt, had served as the mayor of New York City.
Talk about a family legacy. Now, young John Jay was a pretty bright kid, right?
You bet, Chuck. He showed exceptional talents early on. He attended King's College, which is now Columbia University, at the ripe old age of 14.
Impressive, but that's not all. He wasn't just book smart. He was also a skilled diplomat, a formidable lawyer, and an influential writer.
Indeed, Chuck. Jay had a knack for diplomacy and negotiation. But before we get to that, let's talk about his life before the American Revolution.
Right on, Marco. John Jay was an avid supporter of the American cause long before the Revolution even began. He was involved in various protests against British policies, and he co-authored the famous Address to the People of Great Britain in 1774.
And speaking of the Revolution, he was a key player in that too, wasn't he?
Absolutely, Marco. Jay served as president of the Continental Congress from 1778 to 1779. During this time, he was tasked with crucial diplomatic missions, including negotiating with Spain.
And he was instrumental in negotiating the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which ended the Revolutionary War and recognized American independence.
Jay certainly made a mark during the Revolution, but he didn't stop there. He was deeply involved in shaping the new nation's political ideas.
Right you are, Chuck. He was one of the authors of the Federalist Papers, a series of essays advocating for the ratification of the U.S. Constitution.
Jay was all about that strong federal government, wasn't he?
Absolutely, Chuck. He believed in a centralized government, and that's why he joined the Federalist Party, alongside Alexander Hamilton and James Madison.
Fast forward a bit, and John Jay becomes the first Chief Justice of the United States in 1789.
That's right, Chuck. Jay served as Chief Justice for 6 years and helped establish the judiciary's role in interpreting the Constitution.
Wave goodbye to sugar-loaded boosts and say hello to Strikeforce Energy. The energy drink additive revolutionizing how you power up, all without a single calorie or sugar. Just a squeeze, and you're set for action. Ready to make the switch? Visit StrikeForceEnergy.com. And for our listeners, spark your savings with an exclusive 20% discount. Just use code UTSALAX24 at checkout. Remember, UTSALAX24. Strikeforce Energy, elevate every sip.
Welcome back, folks. We're deep diving into the life and times of John Jay, and we've got plenty more to cover.
That's right, Chuck. Now, let's talk about one of Jay's most significant accomplishments, the Jay Treaty with Britain.
Ah, the Jay Treaty. It's a big one, Marco. In 1794, Jay negotiated this treaty, which settled some lingering issues with Britain after the Revolutionary War.
That's correct, Chuck. It resolved disputes, helped avoid another war, and established peaceful trade relations with Britain.
But not everyone was thrilled with this treaty, right?
No, Chuck, it faced fierce opposition from the Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson. They thought the treaty was too favorable to Britain.
Politics, always stirring the pot. So, what did Jay do after his time on the Supreme Court?
Well, Chuck, he didn't rest on his laurels. He went on to serve as governor of New York from 1795 to 1801.
A man of many hats, indeed. And, let's not forget that he also helped negotiate the Treaty of Amity, commerce, and navigation with Sweden.
That's right, Chuck. His diplomatic skills were in high demand.
Now, let's get to the juicy stuff. What was John Jay's lasting impact on the United States?
Well, Chuck, Jay's contributions to the founding of our nation were immense. His work on the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and his diplomatic efforts all played a crucial role in shaping the United States.
And his legacy lives on. He's often called one of the founding fathers, and his ideas still influence American politics today.
Absolutely, Chuck. So, as we wrap up, we want to thank you, our awesome listeners, for joining us on this journey through history.
Yes, thank you, folks. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, rate, and share the History AI podcast. It helps us reach more history buffs like you.
And don't forget to tune in next time as we explore more fascinating chapters of the past. Until then, keep those history books open and your curiosity alive.